Welcome back to another episode of the Casey Campbell podcast. Casey Campbell with you, of course. We are pleased to be joined by our IndyCar expert, that is the one, the only, Colin Kulpa. We just had him on a few weeks ago talking about McLaren. And guess what we're going to talk about today? McLaren. Lots more things have happened there. Colin, how's it going? Apparently, have you been signed by McLaren?
I may be, and if I am, I do not know if my contract is valid or where I will be racing.
That was a joke.
It was a joke. I'm not a race car driver yet.
Okay, so let's talk about the latest news surrounding McLaren, especially around Felix Rosenqvist, mind you.
Yes, shout out to racers Marshall Pruitt, who broke the story this afternoon that Felix Rosenqvist, last week's pole winner at Indianapolis road course, is not under a contract for McLaren. McLaren obviously in the news for many things, including the Alex Palou contract saga, signing Alex Rossi before things were getting crazy, but that still seemed like a big deal. Now it's like on page 5. It had long been speculated he had signed to a contract to race for McLaren somewhere. If they were going to replace him in IndyCar, it was kind of a performance evaluation. If they could find the right driver, that driver apparently being Palou, maybe. McLaren has Formula E seats to fill. Rosenqvist has some experience there. Could have been him. But as of tonight, he has no contract, and he never did. Pruitt speculates it could be a marketing decision by McLaren to kind of tie him there without a contract. It could be some kind of pressure on someone somewhere to sign a contract or not have a contract. It's just madness. I don't know. I'm only 22 years young, but I don't know that I've ever seen anything like this in IndyCar or racing more broadly, except this is just one of the wildest off seasons in, racing history. With NASCAR has been calm, all things considered, and even for them, for NASCAR, I wouldn't call it a super chill and calm off season. Just by comparison, even Formula One, which we'll talk about, has had some silly season news that just is bonkers. But yeah, Rosenqvist might be IndyCar driver next year, and it might be for McLaren. But after Laguna Seca in September, I don't know who's driving for McLaren guaranteed, other than maybe Pato O'Ward and maybe Alex Rossi. But I'd like to see copies of those contracts at this point.
Yeah. Well, we know who's not going to be driving for McLaren, and that is Rinus VeeKay, because today it was announced that he has signed a multi-year deal with Ed Carpenter Racing. Were you surprised by this move? Because, when Rinus kind of talked about, he does feel loyal to Ed and the team, and loyalty wins again. And of course, this was a release, and there was a quote from the driver, and this was official. So there you go.
This one I feel confident about. That's actually true and going to happen. They both seem on board. I'll start with the only reservations I have, and that's Ed Carpenter Racing has gone all in on Bitcoin and crypto. I am aware that I'm not a Bitcoin and crypto expert, but I know that market is very volatile and it can go on big swings, and it's currently on a downturn. Who knows how long that lasts? I worry for racing organizations and their business and sponsorship opportunity. Tatiana Calderon and J.R. Hildebrand and AJ Foyt, an example. But I really like this move for Rinus VeeKay. Ed Carpenter Racing has always kind of been the plucky, second tier. Local to Indianapolis, Ed Carpenter used to be Sarah Fisher Hartman at Carpenter Racing. They were working together. That team has speed, especially at places like Indianapolis. Ed Carpenter himself has sat on pole multiple times at the 500. And they do win. Last year, Rinus VeeKay won at the Indy GP in May, and they have speed. It's a matter of luck and consistency. And what helps consistency is having a driver year after year after year getting comfortable with everything. And it's hard to win an IndyCar. And if you're put yourself in a situation where you're constantly changing teams and constantly in new situations and having to build these relationships, it's very difficult. And Rinus VeeKay is that young prospect. I've seen speculation maybe next year was the year for some movement. Penske possibly having an open seat, depending. it'd be shocking to see Will Power or someone move out, but some of these I may be a little inaccurate. But next year, more seats in high-profile organizations open up, or maybe not. Who knows if contracts are real anymore? But it was seeming like next year, 2023, 2024 could be the year for Rinus VeeKay to move on. Maybe similar to Joseph Newgarden, who had lots of success at Ed Carpenter before moving to number 2 ride to replace Juan Pablo Montoya at Penske. But I really like this move. VeeKay was in the Fast 9 at Indianapolis. He's at qualifying pace. Second at Barber this year. He could have won that race with maybe a little more aggressive defending against Pato O'Ward at McLaren. I really like this, and I would expect the team to at least win next year. That almost sounds weird to guarantee a win from that Ed Carpenter racing crew just because they're not in that top tier. But I would not be shocked at all because that team has got to put together, and they keep learning and they keep growing and building.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about Formula One because why not? Let's start with in chronological order of how the week has gone so far. So Sebastian Vettel announced he's going to retire, and then Fernando Alonso is going to go to Aston Martin. No problems there. But let's stop there. Fernando Alonso going to Aston Martin. Then we'll get to the other stuff later. First off, your reaction to
that? He's not going to win a world championship there. He's not going to win a race there. It must be a lot of money from that team to pull him over there. Alpine has won a race in the last 2 years. Ocon last year won.
That's right. Forgot about that.
Yeah. They have now. It was kind of a luck and kind of a situation, but that's Formula One. You got to put yourself the best team with the best situation wins races, not the fastest car. This is true for all motorsports. You have to have the combination of car, speed, luck, etc. Aston Martin has not had that luck. Formerly Force India, that's not their team. So I'm assuming that this is a lucrative deal for Alonso. I know I saw reports that Esteban Ocon was going to be paid more money than Alonso, and Alonso is a big name, a former world champion. That type does not respond kindly to being a number 2 driver, which is completely understandable. That's not a knock. When you win a world driving championship, you deserve to be treated like a world champion, and maybe not paid the second most on your team. But it's just kind of like a meh move for me. Like, okay, he's going to be at Aston Martin now. He'll still be qualifying. He'll be qualifying worse because he's going to be in a worse car. Unless Aston Martin unlocks something in the technical regulations. And next year is not going to be as dramatic a rules change, if any at all. I know there's been talk about trying to change the floor and like porpoising rules, but that's contentious as well. Next year's cars are going to be very similar to this year's cars comparatively. I don't see Aston Martin suddenly finding speed and challenging for podiums, which in reality, the last time I saw Fernando Alonso compete for a podium, a race win, was at Indianapolis. Before that, it would date back to before he switched over to McLaren Honda in Formula One. It's been a long time since I've seen Fernando Alonso consistently up near the front. And that's really through no fault of his own, and I think Formula One fans and Formula One pundits and Formula One reporters would agree. He's a talented driver who is not on a top-tier team. That's fine. And Fernando Alonso's fine with that. By all means, great. But I hope he appreciates the money, because that's what that seems to be.
Yeah. Kind of like another sports league that we won't get to. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
I don't watch golf. I barely can play it.
Okay, so Fernando Alonso's going to Aston Martin. Now we get to the craziness that is motorsports contracts. So the Alpine team owner, remind me of his name again. I can't say.
Otmar Safnauer is the team principal, I believe.
Otmar Satmauer or whatever. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Apparently, he just found out when the release came out. And then the team goes, okay, now we got to go find somebody. And everybody thought that, Oscar Piastri would get the ride. So they announce the driver that he's going to be in Alpine in 2023. Okay. But if you notice in that press release that was actually pointed out by several F1 friends of mine, he did not have a quote in there. But then he comes out with a statement and says that he did not approve, that he said that the famous Alex Palou went all Alex Palou 2.0 and said, I did not approve this statement. I'm not going to be racing for Alpine in 2023. Alpine did not have permission to do this, and I did not give permission to do this. And basically he says he won't be driving for Alpine in 2023. Oh, so we got one of these again.
Yeah. And then will Oscar Piastri race in Formula One next year? It's possible, and it might be for McLaren. They're tied up in this as well. The speculation was he's possibly been offered the Daniel Ricciardo seat that's been offered to about 20 talented racing drivers. If it weren't for Alex Palou, this would be the news of the offseason, right? And to many people, this is probably much more important news because Formula One is the international competition, etc. It's weird that this has happened twice, right? And it's both involving McLaren. My takeaway from this, Piastri is very talented. He's a Formula 2 champion. He's probably ready for an F1 ride. And like Formula 2, I appreciate Formula 1 is tiered above IndyCar, etc. in the international scope. So Piastri in IndyCar doesn't seem likely. He doesn't really, not that I know, have an interest in that. And I don't know that there's a seat for him available unless it's in the McLaren car. I don't know. But let's take the sports world for a moment. Motorsports is having a moment where they are just announcing things without communication. Tyler Reddick was announced to 2311 Racing, and RCR put out this odd statement that was like the timing could not be worse. It seemed like there was limited communication there.
Yeah, but here's the thing though, with that contractually, this is beginning in 2024. He could get bought out, and by the way, he just won last week.
He did. He's talented and he's winning right now. Yeah. So Michael Jordan is a rich man.
Yeah,
he could buy out Richard Childress' contract.
They did it. There was nothing wrong legally with contracts.
His contract expiring at the end of 2023, signed for 2024, no overlap. That's fine. But that was because that was the same day the Palou news broke. I remember.
Yeah, the Palou news came out later, and then that's when we had you on.
Yeah. But the RCR statement was very odd, and I don't know that we've ever gotten to the bottom of that other than they were just being like annoying that, oh no, we lost our driver that we wanted to retain, and then had some release. Okay, I can't speak to that thoroughly. That's what the implication looked like seeing it online. Right. Then the Palou thing happens where Ganassi puts out a release with a quote in it that is allegedly from him, but then he says, I didn't say that and I didn't confirm that and I'm not racing there next year. I've signed a contract with McLaren. Okay, 3 conversations between people involved happening and none of that leaks publicly unless the journalist gets informed, right? And then it's very juicy gossip and it's a leak. Maybe Marshall Pruitt's breaking it. That's still great. But, like, they should have talked a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? And then this thing as well. Kicking off the week with Fernando Alonso. Not informing Alpine. I guess we haven't heard from Alonso. That's accurate. Both sides. Got to understand. He's on vacation. He's I think that was well-timed for him to reject all the phone calls and post to Instagram. And then Piastri and Alpine. So this, in the motorsports world, juxtaposed with the other major, I guess college football doesn't have a silly season, but conference alignment is about the only thing in the sports world that I can, compare.
That and NIL.
But USC and UCLA leaving for the Big Ten. That dropped with no warning. I believe it was a West Coast journalist. I cannot remember his name, but I posted to Twitter like the USC and UCLA are leaving for the Big Ten, and it's going to be announced later today. And I was like, that can't be right. And then I was like, yeah, we called them, and that's right. That dropped with like no warning, and it was all confirmed. It had all been talked about by people who were secretive and had a plan. And when they were ready to announce the plan, they did. And when someone found out about it, they were prepared to do so. This is not to say that the motorsports folks aren't prepared for these discussions. They're obviously prepared. They do this stuff all the time with contracts. But there is some disconnect in the industry between drivers and teams. I can't pick a side because I appreciate drivers, like, pay them their money. If they're good drivers, they deserve a big paycheck. I also appreciate teams' perspective. We only have so much money to give. Let's talk about this. Let's negotiate, right? Some disconnect is happening between them. And as someone in media, in the marketing department, I also understand that being told to put something together does not mean that you're a part of those negotiations. It just means that you are tasked with creating the words probably given to you by someone else who has probably had a meeting with their superior. There's a whole process for the marketing department. It's not like it's not like the graphic designer is sitting in the contract negotiations, right, with Alex Palou and McLaren or Ganassi. Some kind of disconnect in at least 3 or 4 organizations is happening right now. And it's just strange. I've never seen anything like this. Now, I have heard multiple times in the stick and ball sports, as they're called, people have been traded, and the first time they've heard about it is on Twitter.
Yeah.
That's a similar thing here. It all just comes down to, it seems like a lack of respect to me. This is maybe my old school, like, I'm not an old school person, but I do appreciate, like, talk to people, respect people, have conversations with people, right? This is just teams either not respecting drivers not respecting teams, lawyers not respecting either. And there's not enough discussion happening, and there's not enough conversation happening, and there's not enough respect happening. And then that also, to a point, you just have to say what's reality. So Oscar Piastri saying, I haven't signed that, and I'm not going to drive for them. I'm sure he texted Otmar Safnauer as well, being like, hey, what's going on? Or maybe he skipped that process entirely. I don't know these people personally. But something weird is going on.
Yeah.
And just as you think it's done, it's not.
Oh, it's
even
not.
Even at the highest levels of motorsport. Now, tomorrow, maybe, I'm not going to speculate that Carlos Sainz is going to lose his job or something. But if something like Carlos Sainz is in consideration for McLaren all of a sudden again, I'm like, that could be something. And the Tyler Reddick saga aside, all of this ties back to McLaren, apart from Fernando.
Yeah.
Leaving. That was of his own volition. That's fine. Maybe he should have texted, like, had one phone call with someone, but, whatever. McLaren's involved in this Piastri thing. McLaren is involved with Rosenquist's contract. McLaren's involved with Palou. I thought McLaren was in a different place than they were 4 years ago when they brought a car to the Indy 500, skipped, I think, a full day, maybe more, of practice because it was painted the wrong shade of orange, and then missed the field with a world drivers champion in Formula One, right? That's like unforgivable to an organization that's like 1994 Penske missing the 500 after winning it the year before. Yeah. Maybe it's McLaren that's not having the respect for people at the highest level. I don't know if Zach Brown has made enemies and friends and is just deciding to get back at all of them at the same time. I don't know. But there is some kind of lack of respect happening here. And it's just shocking to see all of this happening. Okay. And this isn't even to say all the blame is on McLaren, because I think Piastri's contract... It's not like the drivers themselves are even negotiating contracts. It's agents and lawyers and things like that. So, I don't know, man. This is wacky. And in reality, I would be shocked if Ricciardo wasn't in the McLaren car at this point. Because it's like, McLaren Formula One seat that's like the one that's available, right? Lando Norris isn't gonna go. Maybe, I don't know, but like Ricardo's been the point of contention, and then Ricardo was allegedly calling Alpine for the open seat there. Maybe he's coming to IndyCar. I don't know. That didn't seem as hot a take. It seemed like that one's cooled off, but this is just wild stuff.
Just when you think about the Pelot thing is done, it's not. The last time we had you on was when all this Pelot stuff started to come out. Since then, there's been a lot more things that are happening. But by the way, Pelot is still racing for Chip Ganassi Racing. Um, while all this is happening, while he's being sued by the team,
In federal court now.
and then he might actually sue for defamation.
The shocking thing about Polo is that he is so chill.
Yeah.
Through all this.
Yeah.
I was at Indianapolis on Friday to see the practice and qualifying for IndyCar, and seeing the way he carried himself around, seeing the way the teams were interacting. I got to walk through Chip Ganassi garage on that part, and like they are all chill. They're doing their jobs. They have their championship goal. That happening while all the other stuff is happening is I don't know in that situation that I could handle myself like chill if I were Alex Palou, because clearly he's agreeing with his team, but he's not the ones. He signs the contract. He doesn't write the contracts. It's this team of agents that are negotiating with McLaren and negotiating with Chip Ganassi, or previously, I'm not sure. That's what's happening here. It's not like Alex Palou's pulling the trigger on all these things, because that's just not how it works in sports. Like Peyton Manning didn't negotiate his contracts. He told them he would like more money, but his agents did that for him. Kyler Murray for the Arizona Cardinals, same thing. Alex Palou with McLaren, same thing. And he's still being competitive despite losing access to multiple data points for Chip Ganassi Racing. It was 2 weeks ago. I want to say it was before Toronto. He lost access to data from home. He was not able to access the same level of information as Jimmy Johnson, Scott Dixon, and Marcus Ericsson. And he's still being competitive in the car. And for such a competitive series, any loss of anything, even tiny things, is a big deal in IndyCar. And he's still putting up competitive times, which is a testament to his talent, a testament to overcoming troubles in his team. But the legal aspect, I do worry for him, because a federal court lawsuit, whether he ends up in a Chip Ganassi contract next year, I'd be shocked if that were the result, that he'd drive in that car. It's probably be a holdout lockout situation.
Or he could just get paid to sit at home. Like, remember what happened to Alex Lloyd?
Exactly. He could not be in the seat next year at all and be making money, like a college football coach who got fired and they got to pay him a buyout, right? Even in that situation, I if I'm Team Penske, I'm never touching Alex Palou. I'm not gonna risk a lawsuit because your team is bungling contracts. If I'm even Ed Carpenter Racing or Dale Coyne Racing as a fallback, let's see, 5-10 years from now, maybe Alex Palou's peaked. He still wants to be in the league, if he's still there at all. I don't know if I want to negotiate with Palou's team because of this saga. So whatever the result is, Palou is going to have to make it work there and going to have to mend a lot of bridges. Even his Chip Ganassi Racing teammates, their quotes to the media, Scott Dixon saying, like, I don't know, man. Pato O'Ward to the Indy Star, Nathan Brown, saying, like, it's clear that he's, like, paraphrasing a little, so Pato O'Ward didn't say this, but he can't always be trusted, essentially. That's big words from people you don't even work, your future coworkers telling you, like, man, there's a weird vibe coming off of him. So McLaren and Chip Ganassi Racing are at least comparable to Team Penske, but like 5-10 years from whenever the next contract expires, I would be shocked if there were a lot of IndyCar teams that in March would have loved Alex Palou. I guarantee you their perspectives have changed. And I can't say the same for Oscar Piastri yet, depending on how that goes. I know Andretti despises Zach Brown, as does Chip Ganassi, but Andretti does. Lost Alex Rossi there. I'm sure they don't get along very well. Actually, that might not be true. I think they get along well. But
Too.
that actually might be the one person. I think they golf together or something. It was funny. They're like getting together because Andretti's trying to get into Formula One. So I retract that.
Yeah.
But I was wrong. But like Andretti, I don't know that Andretti would want Palou ever. It's just it better work out for these folks. Otherwise, they might not be in motorsport much longer. Because like this is the kind of stuff. Well, these are things that should be happening in private if you want to keep. Even public perception is powerful. Some of these things would still get out in private circles, but like you want to keep good relationships in these situations. Like Rinus VeeKay is a shining example of how to navigate a contract in open wheel. He had the option to go elsewhere. Talked with the Carpenter, sat down, and decided I'm not leaving. I'm going to stay here, and we're going to keep building. Which even if he had picked a different team, we can respect that. We can respect his decision, as we do with all athletes. But if it would have been like this, no one's going to want Rinus VeeKay apart from anyone who's on his current contracts. This is just going to be a mess, and it would take years for people to feel like safe. Like I forget how long Palou's contract would have been with McLaren, or would possibly be with McLaren. But when that's up, if he's driving with McLaren, I don't know who else is going to want him back.
Yeah, should be interesting for sure. And with all this going on, IndyCar is going back to Nashville. Yeah.
As a victim of not a victim, I had a great time at the Nashville GP last year. It was hot.
Oh yeah, fun.
It was hot as heck.
I'm going
Nashville
this week, so yeah, it'll be interesting.
But I was reading through the track changes this week. They have made multiple changes. That was kind of a wreck fest last year. There was even a weird caution like the coolers trackside for hospitality leaked onto the track. It was kind of a mess, right? But
it was kind of like the tent that flew
over the Verizon 200, yeah.
That's
but I'm excited for Nashville. Colton Herta was obviously the favorite last year, and pushed too hard. Otherwise, that race probably would have been his. And Ericsson won despite being fully vertical into the air, like at one point in the race. But the track changes should be enough to keep it a competitive race with hopefully less cautions. It's also going to start earlier in the day. There was almost a threat of darkness last year because it started so late in the day. Nashville's on Central Time. But it should be a good race. And for the TV viewer, it should be a better race than last year. I will say last year and this year, ticket sales seem to be very good. So at least the in-person experience seems to be fantastic. And Nashville's a great city to go visit and walk around in. It's a great location. But the bridge has been smoothed down and resurfaced in some areas, so the transitions should be smoother. That was kind of like crossing the railroad tracks at San Jose in the old kart days almost. That was how rough it was. Go look up that video. I saw that making the rounds on Twitter. Those the open wheel cars were crossing the railroad tracks. It looked ridiculous. But Nashville was almost there. They smoothed that out. The big lead in into turn 9 off the bridge, which was a fantastic GA viewing place last year if you're in the Nashville area and need a weekend activity. That has been shortened, narrowed for more hospitality suites, but that makes it a better passing opportunity because the cars have to slow down to make the corner. Colton Herta is probably a little thankful, but that should be a fantastic passing opportunity. And also restarts will happen on the bridge instead of by Nissan Stadium. by pit road, so the cars will have more room to kind of pass. Because the unique part of this Nashville circuit is this tight, like Baku F1 style part once you cross the bridge. Not many great passing opportunities, but once you come off the bridge, that's where everything is. The last turn on the course, I believe turn 11, there was a massive pileup last year that red flagged the race. That has been widened by, I think, 4 to 6 feet, something like that, which doesn't sound like a lot, but like that's about the width of an Indy car. It's exactly as tall as I am if I lay flat on the ground, and that's just enough room for the racing line to be a little bit bigger, and maybe passes happen and people don't clog the whole track. But that's the nature of street circuits. Just hopefully, second time around, some people have some familiarity. The racing's a little cleaner. But I'm expecting a great race. Nashville was great last year. In person, obviously the TV product lacked a little bit, as did the racecraft, but it should be a better weekend. I saw the threat of rain, which maybe throws out all the plans of like being a clean, fun, like this one's better. Because coming off the bridge in the rain seems sketchy. But it should be a fun weekend. Obviously, Colton Hurd the favorite. But pick your bag out of a hat, or pick a name out of a hat for the top 4 teams. Any of them could probably be competitive on that street circuit.
Oh, sure. Should be fun. Yeah, it should be fun. It's like rain all over the place this weekend. My goodness.
I'm worried for Michigan. I like Michigan. Michigan's a fun track, but it's less fun if it's on like Tuesday.
Which, well, Michigan has raced on a Tuesday before, so.
They have. Casey Kane won, didn't he?
Kurt Busch did.
Kurt Busch. Okay, yeah, right.
So, I was actually there that day.
Nice.
So, we'll see how it goes. I did text the meteorologist. He did say the chances are low, but they're not 0.
And if anyone in the media sphere of motorsports is watching, please stop scheduling NASCAR and IndyCar at the same time. I know it's difficult, but like, I love Michigan. Michigan was the first racetrack I went to before Indianapolis. I don't want to have 2 screens.
Double screens activate.
Yeah.
You can I don't know. Maybe you can watch IndyCar and watch. Well, people watch NASCAR first, and then they can watch the IndyCar race later on Peacock.
Whether on Peacock, or watch the IndyCar race and then tune in time for stage 3.
True too.
Because the IndyCar race will be done in a tight 2 hours because they tried to do that. So.
Yep. Well, it could rain in Michigan, and they'll be like, maybe I can just watch this Monday.
That's true.
We'll have to see. All right. Colin Kulpa, thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon, or whenever more craziness happens.
Well, probably next week then.
More craziness will happen.